Shalom, Jonthan Conricus here. You're watching The Bottom Line, and we are going to explore the possibilities of peace between Israel, Lebanon, and maybe even Syria. Stay tuned. Lately, I've seen quite a lot of insinuations and weather balloons in international, Arab, and Israeli media talking about the topic of possible normalization, or dare I even say it, peace between Israel and Lebanon. I'd like to explain how that could happen, who would stand to gain, who would definitely lose from it, and what the chances of this magnificent thing happening really are. Israel and the state of Lebanon have unfortunately been officially at war since Israel was founded in 1948 and since Lebanese troops attacked Israel just after Israel was founded in 1948. Thankfully, Israel was able to defend its northern border and to uphold its territory. And the border between Israel and Lebanon has actually been pretty stable over the years. It is based on various colonial designs from the end of the First World War, the Newcomb-Poulet and the Sykes-Picot agreements from 1917 and 1923, and it's been confirmed on the ground in the year 2000 when Israel last withdrew from southern Lebanon after 18 years of controlling that security buffer zone. Since then, sadly, we have been forced to fight, but today there's positive news and there might be chances of good things happening. Now, who would stand to gain from that? Ever since Hezbollah was more or less defeated on the battlefield by Israel, and ever since Iran has been forced to peel back its control over the Lebanese state, positive things have been happening in the land of the cedars in Lebanon. We see a political initiative by President Aoun to actually consolidate the use of force and monopoly on the use of power in Lebanon away from the hands of Hezbollah and Palestinian and other foreign entities that are using Lebanon as a stepping stone against Israel. And the Lebanese state is actually starting to consolidate power. We're seeing it in southern Lebanon, we're seeing it in Beirut, and we're seeing Iranian forces and their proxies on the back foot, forced to retreat, and they're trying to regroup. We see significant American and French involvement, and behind the scenes, my bet is that there's lots of energy spent on trying to bring this about and trying to bring positive change for the region. So who could possibly gain from peace between Israel and Lebanon? Well, obviously, first and foremost, the people of Israel and Lebanon. The states would enjoy tremendous windfall of investment and economic boom, and we could see all matter of joint ventures, possibilities, resources exploited, and many other positive things that will happen in the region. Who stands to lose? Well, actually, quite a lot of powerful forces. To name a few, Hezbollah and their Iranian patrons will lose ground, and they will lose influence over what used to be Iran's biggest, most dangerous and well-equipped proxy that the Iranians built against Israel. I fear that the Russians will oppose because they stand to lose influence both in Lebanon and, more importantly for them, in Syria. I fear that the imperialistic rulers of Turkey will oppose because they have designs for Lebanon, the Levant, and for Syria, and they are deeply invested in trying to forge Syria or to mold Syria into a future Turkish dominion. And I think that they will oppose rapprochement and peace between Israel and anybody in the region. I hope that the US, France, the European Union, and all other freedom-loving countries will support and bring about this possible positive development in the region. It would for sure stabilize the region. It would prevent the flow of refugees. It would provide refugees in Europe, real refugees by the way, a place to go back to, whether it's Syria or Lebanon. And I think it would show that peace is possible and that with a little bit of imagination and vision and leadership, good things can happen. Now, for there to be peace between Israel and Lebanon, a few things have to happen. There are very strong historical ties between Syria, which used to be called Greater Syria, and Lebanon used to be called Smaller Syria. And I personally don't think that we can have any meaningful political change in Lebanon without Syrian approval and support, and I'll explain why. If you look at the bilateral issues between Lebanon and Syria, you'll find that there aren't really very difficult nuts to crack. Unlike the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, which is much more convoluted, layered, and entails both territory, people, religion, and many other layers, between Israel and Lebanon, we have a more or less established line of withdrawal, which can turn into a border if both two countries agreed. There are a few Lebanese so-called reservations about discrepancies between where they believe the border should be and where international documents and Israel believes that the border should be, and I think they can be settled. There are two outstanding issues that need attention and need Syrian support, and that is the village of Rajar, situated in northern Israel. 2/3 of the village are north of the blue line and effectively inside Lebanese territory, and a third of it is inside Israeli territory. But the kicker is that it was never Lebanese territory. It was conquered by Israel in 1967 when Israel conquered the Golan Heights from the previous Syrian regime. Now, Syria is under new management, which appears eager for international investment, international recognition, and I have to say that they're running a very good strategic communications game, and they appear to be making very little mistakes and to be focused on the future of their country and their people, not on fighting and not on past grievances. And I think that's a possible thing that makes me just a little bit hopeful. And just to be clear, Syrian support and active participation will be necessary, and I would even say crucial. Another thing that relates to Syria is the so-called Mount Dov area. You may have heard of it referred to as the Shaba Farms. This is Hezbollah and UN terminology, or as Jabal Ros. This is what the Syrians call it. In any case, it's a disputed area which I believe can be dealt with and settled with a little bit of creative diplomacy and goodwill on all sides. Nobody really lives there. There are no really important historical ties. And at the end of the day, Jabal Ros, Mount Dov, or the Shaba Farms can be settled. And we can probably find good, sustainable, dignified solutions for northern Rajar as well. Solutions that provide security and security guarantees for Israel and allow people there who are Alawites, who a few generations ago were Syrians, but today are Israeli citizens, and who have no desire to become Lebanese, the option to choose their future. But I will leave that for diplomats. There's already been a diplomatic deal between Israel and Lebanon, a maritime agreement that charts the maritime border between Israel and Lebanon and basically divides where Israel can excavate natural resources and where Lebanon can do it. That deal is a few years old, and I think it's a good blueprint for moving forward. So if this is true, and all the issues are negotiable and soluble on the ground, then what's the problem? Well, there is one significant problem that remains in Lebanon, and no surprise, it is related to UNRWA and to the hereditary status of Palestinian so-called refugees in Lebanon. According to UNRWA figures, which I doubt the veracity of, there are hundreds of thousands of second, third, and fourth, and even fifth generation so-called Palestinian refugees residing in 12 different so-called refugee camps in Lebanon. Why is that an issue? Because I bet that in any future agreement between Israel and Lebanon, which would benefit people and countries on both sides of the border, an issue from the Lebanese side will be, well, what do we do with the so-called Palestinian refugees? They have been forced to live in these so-called refugee centers against their will for about 50, 60, and sometimes 70 years. And now, when peace comes knocking between Israel and Lebanon, decisions need to be made what the future of these people will be. The options are that they're either become citizens of Lebanon and incorporated into Lebanese society, which probably is the best way moving forward, or that they remain in these camps of squalor and undignified existence, or third option, which I think Israel isn't going to agree to in any situation, is that they are allowed to return to the land of Israel, or what they refer to as Palestine. Sadly, I think this is complex, and I think it gives us a glimpse into how rigged the international system is against Israel, and by the sheer fact that UNRWA continues to exist 77 years after its inception, that they internalize the victimhood and the refugee status of Palestinians, unlike any other group of refugees in the world, which have a hereditary ability to pass on the refugee status to their descendants and their grandchildren. That eternalizes a problem, and it may prevent the future of positive things to happen between countries in the region. How can this be achieved? Well, if there's perseverance, visionary leadership, bravery, and clarity in regional leaders and global powers, then maybe, just maybe, a step can be made in the right direction for the people of the region. There's also significant powers that will try to derail this and make it impossible, and as always, use the Palestinians against their better interest as a tool in order to prevent peace, normalization, and progress in the region. I personally believe that peace is possible when creative and brave resolutions are made, when the core interests of people on both sides of the border are put front and center, and when there's leadership with a bit of courage and vision to make sure that this becomes reality. For the people of Israel and Lebanon and Syria, I hope that will happen. I'm Jonthan Conricus. This is The Bottom Line. Thank you for watching this episode about possible peace between Israel, Lebanon, and maybe Syria. If you find this type of content useful, interesting, challenging, please subscribe to our channels, share it with friends, comment on what you see, and let me know what you would be interested in for me to discuss in the future. This is The Bottom Line. Thank you for watching.